Hi everyone, welcome to another video for SimonsSaysStamp.com. Today I'm starting out with some Basil Taffy cardstock, and I've cut it to be a card with a fold on the side, but a landscape card. So I scored it at 5.5. And now I'm going to be using some pattern paper from the 6x6 pad from Glitz. This is the Uncharted Waters collection. I just selected a pattern paper and I've cut it to be 4 inches tall by 5 1/4 wide. And I'm turning over the card, so this would be the inside of the front of the card. And I'm going to be just using some washi tape to hold that in place. I'm not going to be adhering it quite yet. That's because I'm going to be creating a window card. So I'm going to be cutting out the front, and I wanted that inside piece to be the exact same size and positioned just right. So I have this die from Simons Says Stamp. This is the Life Bubble Round, or maybe it's the Life Round Bubble. It's a Life Bubble Round die, I believe. And I'm just going to use some washi tape to hold that in place as well, because I don't want it moving around or shifting once I put it in my die cutting machine. So I just ran that through my Big Shot machine once, and it was thick enough and the die was strong enough to cut through both the cardstock and the pattern paper. So I just took that off of the washi tape. And now I'm going to do some additional die cutting. So these are some letters from My Favorite Things, and I cut them out of this kind of rose red color, and I also cut them out of white. And now I've got just a piece of plastic from some packaging. I'm putting that in the Swiss Dots embossing folder from Cuttlebug. I'm going to be adding some embossing to this clear sheet. I think it's a really cool look, and so I just pulled it out of the embossing folder. You can see those dots on the clear plastic. It just gives it a really cool effect. So I cut down the clear plastic so that it was just larger than that window on the front of the card. I don't want it much larger than that, because I do have to have that pattern paper on the inside that's going to cover up the edges of the clear window plastic. So I'm just cutting it down to size. I then use some Tombow Mono multi-glue just on the outside edge of that window. Just put a little line of that down, and then put the window plastic directly down on top. And I held that in place for a little bit because I didn't want it sliding around at all. So then I took the pattern paper that I cut earlier and I put some adhesive on the back of it. And then I'm just lining it up along the bottom of that window and then straight down onto the inside of the card. So now I have this clear embossed plastic that's sandwiched between the card base and the pattern paper. So I took some more pattern paper. The yellow piece is actually 4 inches tall by 6 inches wide, and then the pale blue is 4 inches tall by 5 1/8 wide, or actually just a little bit less than that. Anyway, what I'm doing is I'm making a second little kind of booklet inside the card, and so I just marked where I needed to add a little score line right there, and I'm going to be scoring from the bottom where I made that little mark. And this is going to help create that fold, because the pattern paper wasn't wide enough to just fold in half. So I'm having to put 2 pieces of pattern paper together, which turned out really cool anyway. So I'm just going to put a little bit of adhesive down on that little tiny flap. And then I'll take the other piece of pattern paper and I'm going to put it the side that I want face down, line up the edges, and then fold over that flap, and that's going to adhere exactly how I want it. I did end up trimming it so it matched up perfectly, but then I have another little booklet that goes inside the card, and that yellow piece is going to have some color behind the window, and it also makes it so I can have the entire inside of the card to write a message to the recipient. So just put adhesive on the back of that and put it inside the card. So that's what it looks like so far. I love those stripes inside too. And now I'm going to be working on the sentiment. I'm going to be embossing, so I used the Inkadinkado Embossing Magic Powder Bag, and then some Versamark ink on this stamp from the U stamp set from Simons Says Stamp. And this one says, "Are the best part of my day." So I've cut out those letters for you, and then this will finish the sentiment. So just stamp that down on my compact stamp press. And then I added some Hero Arts white embossing powder, just sprinkled that on, and then tapped the paper to shake off any excess. And then heat set that until it melted with my heat tool. I trimmed it down so that it was just a narrow strip, and then did some V-shaped cuts on the ends so it had more of a ribbon look, more of a banner. And I'm going to be putting this directly on top of the front of the card. So I'm going to be cutting this out again here in a minute, and you'll see what I mean. So the letters I decided would be easiest to adhere using the Xyron Create-A-Sticker machine. And if I would have been a little more careful, I could have got these letters closer together so I could not waste so much of the adhesive. But anyway, you get the idea. So I went around the edges with my bone folder just to really press down those edges, peeled off the backing, and then now all of these letters are stickers. So here's where I talked about where I'm going to have to cut it out again. I took another piece of pattern paper and I just cut another little banner shape that's the exact same size. Then I adhered those letters to the front of the card. I cut out a little strip of pattern paper and I adhered that down, and I wanted it on there straight, so I just used a T-square ruler as a guide when I adhered that down onto the front of the card. Then I cut some foam squares to be just slightly smaller than they usually are, just in half, and added that to the back of the pink banner so that I could put that above the little strip of pattern paper. And I added some white dashed lines around the outside edge of that window just because I wanted to bring in a little more detail. And then I wrapped some May Art Natural Twine around just the front of the card. I didn't have it go around the yellow pattern paper, it was just the front. Tied it in a bow. And now I'm going to be working on the inside. So I'm just taking that piece that I cut that was exactly the same size and adhered that over it. And you're going to see the stripe a little bit behind that pink, but I think it looks kind of cool. And then I took those red letters that I cut out. And now these letters, no matter what direction they are, they're correct. But if you were to do this with a different type of font that's maybe not symmetrical, you would have to take into account the pattern that you want showing on the back of your letters. So here's what it looks like going into the card, all the different layers. Then I decided I wanted to add a little tiny red heart. So that little heart is die cut using the Simon Says Stamp Mini Hearts dies. So I just glued that in place and used my scissors to kind of wiggle it on there to the spot that I wanted. And that is the card for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. I love that there's lots of different interesting parts, the embossed plastic, the different letter stickers, and also, of course, the extra pattern paper inside. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching.